Okay, so we all agree, right? A product accomplishment is nothing without generating revenue, right? And we all believe in making profits, generating revenue, and this is how our next topic begins with monetizing B2C products. Please welcome Anjali Sam, who is a lead product manager and working enthusiastically on these aspects and sharing here as a speaker today. Over to you, Anjali.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and good morning to you all. Glad to see a very vibrant energy in the room right in the morning on a Saturday morning. I would have slept in my home if it was not for this conference. So yeah, definitely a difference. And I wanted to appreciate Chirantan, but I don't see him. But the first session, the topic was, what we started with was Product Sunset, which was very surprising to me because starting the day with a sunset, right? But even that being said, I think the topic gave us a lot of insight. So it was a really good session. Coming to what I would be talking about, like Jasleen mentioned, it is mostly around monetization within the B2C aspect, and it's mostly just sharing the experiences that I had within the role that I have been playing, some of the learnings that we got through data, through customer insights, and how we iterated as well, right? So through the journey, I'll take you through some of the examples that worked, didn't work, and hopefully that will give you also some insights, right? So before I start, I wanted to understand a bit about the audience. So where are you guys like belonging to? Like how many of you are in product? How many of you are in IT? Just wanted to understand. So can we show a quick raise of hands for people in technology, software? Okay, most of you are in technology, software. All right. And any product managers over here? Oh, okay. Few product. Sorry? On and off. Okay. What is your full-time role if it's not product? Delivery manager, all right. I think in a way, in multiple functions of the organization, right? People do play product roles, even if you don't have a title called as product manager. And even when it comes to the term called product manager, there are multiple functions that you perform, which is not part of your job description also, right? You are expected to do multiple things. So in a way, I do feel that many people who work closely or are associated with the product do play a product role some way or the other, right? So, okay, without further ado, let's go into, a bit about me so that you also know like where I come from. So, I am from an engineering background, but it is electronics engineering actually, but I didn't do anything beyond that degree in that particular aspect like many of the engineers out there. Went into IT, I was with Deloitte for 2 years in business analytics. Post that, I did an MBA from IIM Calcutta and then moved into product management. So it was the MBA that helped me move from the analytics function to product, right? And that's what gave me that insight or entry into product, right, as a role. And I work with this company called as Cactus Communications. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it. It's based out of Bombay. We help with AI tools and services that help researchers or the academia, right, for people who are doing their research, solving their pain points. And that's what I've been working on for the past couple of years with Cactus. So primarily my experience lies in building an ecosystem of tools, right? So if there are multiple tools that are in their singular existence, the problem that I've been trying to solve is to connect them together and give a connected user experience. So say for example, when you think about Google, right, as an ecosystem, you have multiple products within Google itself, say Maps, right, or say any of the other products, say Sheets, Docs, all of these you are able to bring together under one Google umbrella, right? And it's able to give you a connected experience. That's when the power of the ecosystem comes into play. And that's what I've been also trying to drive at Cactus so far. And I've done experiments or product feature launches across multiple stages of the product journey, starting from acquiring users to getting them to onboard, which is the activation element, right? To getting them to engage and retain with the product and eventually the monetization goal, which is primarily what we'll be going through. On a platform level, there are pieces which I've been able to experience, which has helped multiple products in the ecosystem, such as including subscriptions or looking at how payment methods can differently help for different geographies. Say payments in India is very different from a payment payment in Japan, right, or a China market. So how do you basically cater to global products that can scale across markets, right? And along with those payments, you also have to then think about the invoices, just like how we have GST invoice over here. When it comes to Japan, they have an invoice called as the EMNS, right? So depending on different markets, the requirement of invoicing also differs. So all of these are some areas which I have been able to work on. Just a quick brief about what Cactus is so that all of us know like what I'm going to talk about moving forward, right? So this is a company which is made in India, but we have presence across the world, right? We have more than 50 lakh users across 190 countries. And Cactus has been around for about 22 years. Primarily, we have been supporting people with the service side of the business, which is where Editage brand comes in. We have 20 plus services that help academia, such as editing, translation, right, publication support, all of these things. But there have also been AI tools that have come in the past couple of years. Now, you know that AI is a buzzword in the industry, right? A lot of companies are trying to do AI. Some of them fail, some of them work, right? It's a hit and a miss. But we have also been delving into the space of AI on how that has been helping in terms of supporting researchers. So these are some of the products that I've been working on. I mean, each of these products, they have individual product managers as well. But the goal of connecting these products together in an ecosystem is primarily what I have been driving. So PaperPal is similar to a Grammarly, if you have ever used it, right? So it's designed for the academia. Discovery is something that helps you with literature reading. So if you have a specific topic that you want to like stay up to date on, it helps you find that paper. And Mind the Graph is like a Canva for academics, specifically designed for academia. So this is just a brief so that you are on the like same page as to what I've been working on. Moving into what we'll be covering in the session, right? These are the primary things that I want to touch upon. I hope the time allows me to do that. But we'll just quickly go through many of these aspects, right? So starting with how can we craft and iterate on subscription models which can help retain users. Data-driven decisions that you can do for the subscription on, say, pricing, packaging, right? On how you can improve upon what you have already built. Identifying and implementing smart features, right? Small MVPs which can drive up conversions without putting in a lot of effort or investment. Enhancing the engagement of the users within your product through personalized onboarding and omni-channel experiences, right? Nowadays, you can communicate to users through multiple channels. It's not limited to emails or phone calls like earlier, right? You can actually reach them on a browser or a web, like while they are even browsing through social media, right? You have a lot of information about the user through browser cookies and all of that. So how can you build some omni-channel experiences to give them that personalization? And finally, how we can retain the users through continuous communication across their journey. These are some of the aspects that we'll be covering, right? Now, yeah, so before I move into the next slide, I'd like to hear from you guys. So when it comes to monetization in B2B versus B2C, right? What do you think some of the differences are?
Your customers, like what Chirantan also touched based upon was that just understanding what are the problems your customers facing.
Right.
So I think the entire ecosystem just revolves around them. Revolves around it.
Right.
It's about knowing your customer.
And what about B2B? How do you think it's different from B2C?
I think the only difference here is that in B2B, in B2C, I mean, I don't know whether what I'll say is relevant or not, but
That's fine,
again, it just gives us this difference that when the people we are speaking with are the customers, but they are also trying to solve a problem for their end users. So I think this is one pipeline that just increases.
The customer and the consumer are different.
Yes, the customers and the consumers, and having that surety that your customers knows the end users completely. I mean, that is also just an assumption that we go ahead with.
Right.
So yeah, maybe.
Definitely spot on. Any other points from B2C? Yeah. Sorry, we'll come to you. Yeah. Go ahead.
So one thing that I've always seen is B2B customers are more faithful to your company. They
loyal.
Yeah, loyal. And B2C.
You didn't see the slide, did you?
No, I have not. I generally
just
work on
confirming.
B2B customers. I've never worked with B2C.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
On B2C, generally what my personal opinion is, because we generally switch from apps a lot because of the new vouchers or the new gifts.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So we're not that faithful, or we can go
Right.
away very quickly.
Loyalty is a big problem when it comes to B2C. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike.
So I think one of the major differences is the ticket size. I think the contract value. In B2B, you may be working with enterprise customers, so you must be dealing in thousands of US dollars or maybe millions as
Right.
and the sales cycle is
One
pretty
deal and
longer.
you may be able to achieve
Yes.
closer to your revenue,
And
right?
the
You
ticket
can
size is comparatively smaller in a B2C environment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Any other points anyone wants to make? Okay, more people.
I think one of the major differences here with B2C is that B2C actually getting a new customer has a different, altogether different approach to get that, and it a lot depends upon the organic traffic to your sites and then whatever advertising marketing you are doing based upon that. Yeah, so the approach to acquire B2C customer is going to be very, very different usually.
True, right. It's a lot dependent on SEO, right? How you optimize the search engine to bring traffic, right, onto your platform, and the marketing, definitely. I think there was, one more person raised their hand over there? Same point. Okay, all right, yeah. Yeah. No worries.
I think one, and I work with B2C and B2B both. One very big difference that I notice is that in B2B, the touch points are very direct with the customer, right? And the communication channel is also very clear and direct. So the feedback that you get from an enterprise customer is far more, it's easier to obtain. They are more direct about issuing feedback rather than B2C customers who may not like something in a product and just leave without really being very vocal about what they did not like to give you the feedback to improvise your product. So I think one of the areas that I feel is one of the biggest differentiators in my experience in working with both is the fact that you get a customer to collaborate onto your product in a far more deeper method than a B2C customer would.
That's a very interesting insight because, I have not worked a lot with B2B, but on B2C, I have actually faced an issue, right, with getting customers on call. But whenever they are not happy about something, they are pretty vocal. That's something that we generally see, especially with Indian customers, right? So, and when it comes to B2B, a lot of the product features are shaped using customer insights, right, about the businesses that you work with. So definitely that is something very interesting. So a lot of these things were already covered when you talked about it, right? So when it comes to, say, monetization specifically in B2B versus B2C, right? These are some of the differences that you can look at. In B2B, many a times the decision making is a slower process because there are multiple stakeholders involved, right? And the final consumer of the product may not be the customer in many a times, right? And there are longer sales cycles, but at the same time, there are higher ticket sizes. So even if you take some time, definitely the revenue that you get at the end of it would be actually higher than what you might get in a B2C aspect. There is also a lot of relationship building and product feature customization that might be required when it comes to B2B, right? So the same product, you might sell it to two different customers with two different features, right? Depending on what exactly is their requirement. When it comes to B2C, the individual itself is making the decision making, right? And because of that reason, it's a shorter sales cycle. And just like how one of the attendees mentioned, right? Over here, it is very important to drive the right communication to educate the user properly about what your product can provide, because the customer attention span is also very less. They are making the decision very quickly, right? So you cannot keep them waiting in order to make the payment or make the purchase or conversion. Brand loyalty is very important, right? Emotional appeal on what the customer can do from a particular product versus its competitor, right? Why would I choose product A over B? So that's also an aspect. And obviously, there is a lot of focus on the product itself when it comes to the B2C side, what you call nowadays as product-led growth, like Chirantan had mentioned, right? So some of the challenges that are there when it comes to monetizing in B2C are these aspects, right? One, customers are very price sensitive. So many a times if you have, say, two products, say Netflix versus Prime, for example, right? Whenever you think of like which product to go for, one thing that you definitely look for is the kind of entertainment or the kind of like content that you get, right? Definitely. But at the same time, the price also becomes a major factor in basically choosing what product you want to stick on to for a longer period of time. Freemium is something that people are dependent on a lot, right? Many a times we see that, especially Indian customers, if they are happy with the free features, then it's very difficult to convert them to a paid customer unless there is a wow factor in the paid version, right? And even I belong to that category. Like many a times I don't like go for a payment unless and until I feel like there is a definite strong need for that. There is high churn. So if at all, say even you are using a product and you find that there is a better competition out there, right, which is giving you a better discount, there are chances that the customer will switch. Again, comes back to the topic of brand loyalty. There are rapid preference shift as well, right? Consumers are changing very quickly. So now with the advent of AI, the kind of things that products can do for you are also shifting very quickly. Unless and until you are able to build your product in a way that, you know, goes along with the market, it becomes difficult then to survive, right? Just like how we saw in the previous one. And the value perception gap is something which is very like prominent in many of the products. What you want to give your customer and the kind of value that you want to provide may not exactly be what the customers perceive out of the product, right? So say for example, one very like prominent example that I can remember is when the Nano car came out, right, in India. What do you think was the problem with Nano? Why did it not work? Anyone? The marketing failed. Okay, why did the marketing fail? Why do you think, what was the problem with marketing?
So it was not going with, the correct image with the customer. So it was like, he is using a very cheap product was the thing that was giving a sense to the customers.
Right, spot on.
Rather than talking about the exact usage, that should, if would have been highlighted, it would have been a hit.
Yeah, so Nano was built in a way to be appealing to the general average Indian consumer, right, who do not have a lot of money to spend on something like a car, but at the same time they want to have that achievement of having the first car, right? That was basically the idea that they were going behind, but the problem that hit them back was that in India especially, having a car, having a house, these are considered as prestigious, as privileges. So whenever you think of it, you do not want to go for something which has a cheap image, right? So the image or the branding that they kind of did went wrong and did not really work with the Indian consumer. So that's when it comes to the value perception, right? On what you want to communicate versus what actually the customers perceive out of it may actually be different, right? So why subscriptions out of all of the different pricing models that are out there, right? What do you think subscriptions have in addition to, say, any other model that are out there, right? These are some of the benefits that you can get out of subscriptions for any B2C product. One, it brings you recurring revenue, right? You don't have to, so one customer, if they subscribe for you on a monthly basis and they like your product, right, then there are chances that they'll continue for at least a short period of time. So you don't have to go behind the customer every month telling them that, see, you had used this feature, why don't you try it again? Unless and until, say, they cancel and you want to do a win back. So the customer acquisition cost also reduces because of this recurring revenue model. There is enhanced customer loyalty and retention if the product is delivering upon what it is talking about. For the customer, there is a lot of convenience and flexibility, right? So even like most of the subscription models out there, they have different variants. So if you want to upgrade or downgrade from one version to another, it allows you to do that very flexibly. It has scalability options. So even if you want to build upon the current subscription models and include more features, right, include other plans, you have the option to do that. It gives you improved customer insights because the longer the customer is with you and the kind of features they use, if you are able to understand that through data, you'll be able to personalize their journey more and retain them. And of course, it is cost efficient when it comes to the acquisition cost for the customers, right? Let's take a look at a day in the subscription economy because nowadays we are very used to having subscriptions in our lives, right, for anything and everything that we basically do. So we have Blinkit and Swiggy, Instamart for anything that you want. Like today morning only I ordered milk right before I came because I forgot that I hadn't bought milk. So it has become very easy now with the subscription models, right, in life that you are able to do everything through subscriptions. For fitness, you have multiple multiple subscription apps, right, which help you with guided goals, guided diets, right? It will help you with tracking your fitness goals. There is ride sharing in, like most of us would have taken a cab to come over here, right? Uber, Ola has become very common nowadays. Multiple cloud-based subscription models we use in our day-to-day work, right? There are subscription tools such as, say, Jira, Confluence, right? A lot of it Microsoft Office, which we use. There are delivery services, again, similar to Swiggy, right? We use education platforms. Streaming is one of the most common things of subscription, right, that we use nowadays. There are also smart home security systems, connected systems, which we use to, control our lights, our devices, right? So a lot of this is basically now revolving around subscriptions, which is why I'm telling that this is a subscription economy. People are moving into subscriptions a lot. So in 2017-18, right, the market size for subscription business in India was only around 1,200 crore. But looking at 2025, this has grown by about 30x, right? It has become around 36,000 crore. So there is a lot of potential that subscription businesses have, and we have seen that grow in the past couple of years, right, within a matter of few years. So which is why subscription as a system or as a pricing model, right, has really worked for many of the businesses out there. And for B2C specifically, it actually makes sense to even move to a subscription model. And these are some of the key factors which have shifted or shaped the economy within India, especially when it comes to subscriptions, right? It helps you with shorter plans, say monthly plans or weekly plans that you want, which makes things affordable. So even if you have a need for a shorter period of time, you can go for a subscription for a shorter duration. The digital infrastructure nowadays, every single person has a mobile and an internet, right? So it makes it much more easier for them to access everything. The consumer behavior is also shifting, like I mentioned, right? There is a rapid perception shift, but with that, the subscriptions are also catching up according to the needs of the consumers. It helps you with localizing the experiences and personalizing it as well, right? There is also penetration from multiple industries into subscriptions, which kind of makes it a very common thing nowadays. And of course, there is support from multiple fintech modes, such as payments, right? When it comes to UPI, right? All of these have made it much more easier for us to basically pay for all of these things. So now let me come into some of the examples, right, on how basically we went about creating a subscription and why that problem actually came into the picture, or why subscription model came into the picture. So the problem that I was presented with, right, when I joined the organization was to ensure that there is cross-product usage. So like I showed you earlier, there were multiple products ABC which were working in isolation. And the problem statement was that people were using these individually, but they didn't even know that they were part of the same ecosystem, right? So someone who had a need for, say, writing a paper were using one tool, but they also had the need, because they are the same user, they'll go through the same journey. They also had a need for reading a paper, right? But at the same time, they didn't know that these two products were connected. So how can you connect these within the ecosystem and ensure that there is more usage so that user retains within, right, and is loyal to the products within the ecosystem? That was the problem statement. And the solution that came up first, right, whenever we, the entire organization, we were brainstorming, the first solution that presented was a bundled membership. And it was not a subscription that we started with, right? So the concept of bundled memberships came up from primarily examples like Times Prime. I'm not sure if any of you have heard or used Times Prime. It's similar to OTT Play, right? Where you want multiple subscriptions, right, or multiple products that you are using. You want access to that in a single payment, right? So that is from where the concept came up, bundle membership. And this was the first avatar of the bundle membership that we created, right? So and this was exactly like, these are screenshots from the landing page that we had created. So over here, can you take a look at it and quickly tell me if there are any problems that you're seeing with the way that we are presenting the information? Are you able to understand what exactly is there on offer, right? You are not, okay, yeah. Any problems that come up like in one look? Information overload, okay. Product? Differentiation, okay. Product differentiation. All right, okay. So the initial thought was that we need to bundle things together and sell it to them under a single membership, so that it's easier for people to access things. But we did not really think of the end consumer on how they would be perceiving this, right? How would they even understand what is it that we are trying to provide when we did this? So while it was clear in our heads that this is basically what we wanted to do, for the customers it was completely haphazard, right? And it was even more confusing for the marketing teams because they also didn't know what exactly to communicate, right? So in this, some of the problems that you see over here, right? One is a difficult packaging. We had a varying type of benefit, right? So we had benefits varying by value, varying by time period. So some of the included benefits were valid for 1 year, some for 2 months, some for 3 months, some were a 50% discount, right? And some were a one-time use, some were a full access. So it made it very difficult to even communicate on what exactly are you getting from this, right? There was only one option for user to choose from. It was a one-time subscription, not even a subscription. It was a one-time fee of $99 for 1 year that you had to pay to get all of these things. And many a times if you don't have the need for say 2 or 3 things within that, right? It doesn't even make sense for you to pay that kind of an amount and subscribe for like a long period of time. So many a times from customer interviews, from data that we saw that people are not able to really, they don't even have the capacity to pay for this, right? So we were not able to penetrate the market with this. And also it was difficult to comprehend. There was a lot of focus on say categories, right? Write, publish, read, cite, etc., which didn't really communicate or resonate with the customer well. So the revamped avatar that we got about, it was almost after 1 year of trying out the product, and that was one example of how we didn't do a sunset specifically, but we wanted to do a rebranding and get out there solving for the problems of the customers, right? So many of these user conversations and data that we had helped us understand the problems, and from there we realized that we need to do a rebranding and a complete revamp of how we communicate these things to the customer. So this is the revamped product. Now over here, what difference do you notice? Is it easier to understand what is being there on offer now? It is, right? And what difference do you see? Like the communication also, it is a bit more clearer, right? You're able to see things clearly on what the product can offer, right? With the screenshots of the product, with the working of the product. You can see that we are talking about use cases over here, right? Rather than the product names or the categories. So some of these things really helped us. And we even named the product All Access instead of the previous avatar of Prime. Prime, just because we are used to calling Prime plus all of these things as a paid version. All Access is a terminology. We just gave one single tagline saying you get unlimited access with All Access. So it was much easier for user to even understand what we are trying to sell. The positioning was much more clearer, right? It became an easier sell. The pitch became much more bolder. We said that this is the one-stop shop. So whatever you need for your research, you get it over here, right? And we gave the user also the power of choice. So with this, we also moved into a subscription model, right? Where users had the option to choose from multiple types of plans, starting from week pass to a monthly plan, to a quarterly, to a semi-annual, to an annual, right? Whatever you need, depending on your paying capacity, you can subscribe for this, right? And having auto renewals made the payments also pretty hassle-free. Users didn't have to come back and resubscribe or repay for something if they are actually liking the product, right? And giving flexible pricing options. So these are some of the things which really worked for us. And post, like, yeah, sorry.
From the point, but
Sure.
I wanted to understand as in what type of people were involved in redesigning this experience. So UX is a very general term, but when we go below this, what was the skill set or what type of people actually came up with this particular design and workflow and
Right.
the nomenclatures?
Right, yeah. So, there is a long process which goes behind any particular product redesign or revamp, right? The primary and most important thing is to look at the customer data, right? So user research is a big part of any organization. Generally, there are organizations which have dedicated user research teams that work with the product teams in understanding, what the user behavior behavior is or what the user sentiment is. So that's one part, talking to users, understanding their insights, right, and revamping based on that. And beyond user research, there is also a lot of user design that goes into the picture, right? So the design team along with the product team works together in order to relook at the user sentiment and figure out what are the kinds of designs that, or the pitch that goes into it, right? The branding team comes into the picture if you see that there is a brand problem. And the most important thing is, before you relaunch something into the market, if you are correcting a problem that you had, right, it is important to take customer feedback and ensure that you're moving in the right direction. So if you have, say, 3 options of things that you can go with, do A/B testing, do beta testing with the users, collect their feedback on calls, right, on interviews, and see whether they are aligning with one particular direction before you go ahead and experiment with it. Because many a times you build something and then you realize that it was not in the right direction, right, and you fail. So there is a lot of missed opportunity cost, right, that goes into it. So these are generally the cycles which even we followed, right, when it came to the revamp of this. I'm getting a signal that the time is moving, so I'll quickly go into some of the other things that we did as well. So after launching something or revamping something, it's also important to leverage data and ensure that you are building upon what you have already launched, right? So flexible billing option, right? Monthly, quarterly, annual, that's something that we did based on, again, customer data. There were auto renewals which was implemented. Something that really worked well for us was differential pricing. So say, for example, in the US market, the price that you can provide for a subscription could actually be much higher than what you can provide in an Indian market, right? The Indian consumer, average Indian consumer, they look for the cheapest price and the best discounts before going ahead and subscribing to anything. So that was a concept that we implemented depending on the customer data and information. We implemented differential pricing for emerging countries such as India, right, Indonesia, Philippines, where they have a problem or difficulty with the capacity to pay. And many of these things actually resulted in incremental revenue, right, when we look back at how things worked for us. Customer segmentation is again another thing that really helped us, right? So many a times the same customer, the customers are different, right? So depending on the kind of background that you come from, say for example, if you are a student, the kind of capacity that you have to pay would be different from when you are, say, a PhD or a senior researcher in a lab, right? So depending on your capacity to pay, having different customizations in the plans, right, are available on the product, which actually helps. You had a question? Okay. Correct. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So understanding the demography and where the customer comes from, right? What is their capacity to pay? That's definitely important while designing the kind of subscription plans that you want, right? So these were some of the examples that we did. We had custom plans according to the stage of research that you are in. We had created bulk purchase plans if you are coming from, say, a university or a lab. We went for student plans for people, again, who wanted limited features but for an affordable price, right? And when it comes to boosting conversions, product-led growth plays a very important role, right? So product-led growth is simple. That's where your product drives the growth entirely, right? That's the primary driver of your growth. And your product shows that the entire value of what you are trying to deliver, right? Earlier, we used to mostly work in a sales-led model, most of the companies, right? Where you acquire, first monetize, then you engage with the customers, and then you try and expand or increase the average order value from the customer. But nowadays, many of the organizations are in a product-led model where you try and engage with the customer first, give them a way to experience your product before you go ahead and try to ask them for paying you for the value that you deliver, right? So creating low friction entry points, right? Experiencing the product value early on through free trials, right? Through freemium versions, that's very important. This will actually drive up the customer lifetime value, right? The time that they give you within the product and the kind of revenue you can generate, right? So these were some examples that we tried out which kind of boosted the conversions through PLG. So there was a problem that we saw that users wanted a way to experience the features before they actually convert into a paid mode, right? So we went for this concept called as reverse trial. So this example that you see in Dropbox, right? It kind of gives you 30 days for free first with all of the premium features. And then after that, it tells you that, okay, now if you want to experience the premium features, you have to pay, or else you have to go into the free plan. So once customers have gotten the taste of what your paid features can do for them, then it becomes easier for you to convert them back. And this concept is called as reverse trial. Earlier we had free trials, right, where customer signs up for something, does a free trial and then pay. But nowadays, companies are also trying out this concept called as reverse trials, right? And this really enabled the usage and conversion. There was another problem that we faced, that there was a huge drop-off from people with high intent to the final payment because there was a mandatory user registration flow in between. And most of the companies have this. Before you make a payment, you have to make a registration, right? What we did was we implemented a guest checkout flow, right? So what we did within that was the customer can register while they are making the payment itself. You don't have to enter a password. You don't have to go through the full process of giving your phone number, everything. We auto create an account for you. Getting the payment is what is most important from a company's perspective, right? Registration can happen in the background. That can happen after the customer has made the payment. Because once they have actually paid you, then they will definitely register. So moving that particular process to a later part of the funnel helps improve the conversion as well. I think I'll have to probably skip some of these things, but essentially what I wanted to talk about over here was that beyond monetization, it's also important for you to keep your customers engaged, right? In a traditional business model, all of these things were disconnected. But now all of the experience around the product is actually connected to the customer. Only then will they be able to get a good experience with the product. So getting personalized onboarding to understand the user better, right? Giving a connected user experience across multiple channels and giving contextual communication according to the segments that you're targeting. These are some of the things which are important, right? So having very attractive email campaigns, right? Using the power of visual communication, right? The power of simple communication, which kind of helps them users connect better, right? That is something which is very important when it comes to communicating to users. And most of our email campaigns have been driving at least 45% of the revenue because we have been able to communicate to the customers on a regular basis. Similarly, social media is very important nowadays, right? It's not only limited to emails or WhatsApp, right? Any of the other platforms. It's also important that you get the customers equally aligned on other social media. And many a times people actually like even memes from a product, right? So you would think that many a times serious products or professional products, right, cannot actually go beyond their professional angle and talk to the customers. But this example is a meme that we sent out on Valentine's Day and it was a hit, right? While we are talking about a serious topic like research, people were able to connect to this better because it's talking from a very funny angle, right? So many a times going beyond the defined lines of what a professional communication should be can actually be a wow factor to your consumers, right? So yeah, this is primarily what I wanted to cover. Sorry, I had to rush in the end, but a quick recap, right? Crafting effective models will actually need some level of user understanding and data as well, right? That kind of helps you in terms of figuring out if you're moving in the right direction or not and course correct if you are actually making a wrong decision somewhere, right? Leveraging data for smarter pricing, packaging, customer segmentation, that kind of helps you improve your conversions further beyond the initial models that you create. Identifying low-hanging fruits or smart features that can drive up conversion, like the reverse trial or the guest flow, right? Which can actually be a small thing in the customer experience, but can actually give you a big boost, right? Enhancing user engagement through personalized experiences. And finally, improving the retention through continuous communication, be it on whatever channels that you can actually reach out the customer to. So these are some of the elements which, when connected together, help you build good subscriptions which are effective in retaining your customer, right? That's what I wanted to primarily cover. Would love to take any questions. I think people have been waiting. Yeah, if we can have the mic. Okay, sure. Sure. Sorry about the timing, but thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Over to you. Yeah.
Thank you for adjusting because of the activity. It took 5 minutes extra, but yeah. So let's resume after break, guys. And before we go to the break, let's honor Anjali and thank you for the detailed description around monetization. Okay, so a quick question for the participants now. Who is fasting today? Anybody who is fasting today? Or fast a day per week? Anyone who fasts a day per week? Okay. No, I'll consider a day as a fast. Okay. So, maybe your names, please. Hitesh. Saurabh. Okay, we have 2 S and 1 uncommon Hitesh. Can we have on the center of the floor, please? Okay, so let's award Anjali for the contribution. Please have a huge round of applause for Anjali. Please, guys, be sporting and motivating. Thank you. Okay, so it's 11:35 by my watch. Let's resume back for after the tea break by 11:50. Okay, thank you, guys. See you. And if anybody is interested